How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
So I try to find a nice balance. I don't call them anymore. They have stopped calling me. I'm just done with them. They had their chance. They had their chance to build a meaningful relationship with me. There's beautiful people in the world. I have a really great relationship with my children. I would never put them through what my mom put me through.
Welcome to DNA Surprises, a podcast that delves into the world of unexpected DNA discoveries. I'm your host, Alexis Auersalt. In July 2021, my life took a surprising turn when I found out that I'm an NPE, a person who has experienced a non-paternal event. In other words, my biological father isn't who I thought he was. Join me as we explore the stories of NPEs, adoptees, and donor-conceived people and their families. Get ready to unravel the astonishing journeys that begin with a simple DNA test. This is DNA Surprises. Dad, biodad, genetic father, or just father. After people connect with their newfound biological fathers, they often struggle with what to call them. And what about the dads we grew up with? Raised dad, stepdad, birth certificate dad. Then there's the well-meaning but perpetually frustrating phrase, your dad is still your dad. Love that one. Many of us do continue calling the dads we grew up with dad. But what if your relationship with your raised father is traumatic? What if you were always distant and there's no real love lost after uncovering a DNA surprise? In this week's episode, Luisa shares a name I hadn't heard yet on the show. Fake dad. She shares how she uncovered her DNA surprise and the impact that it had on her relationship with her parents, as well as the biological father she was able to identify. He's called New Dad, by the way. A quick warning before this episode begins. There is mention of childhood sexual abuse during our conversation. Thank you for sharing your story, Luisa.
My name is Luisa. I currently live in Ohio, but I was born in Germany, actually East Germany, behind a wall. And we moved here to Ohio when I was 13. I grew up in East Germany with a brother. He was 3 years older than me. My mom, my dad, which we will call fake dad, as it turns out, and my grandma, all in the same household. It was a pretty normal upbringing. A few incidences that I kind of remember growing up that, looking back now, are really weird, and they will kind of set the stage for what I will find out later. The first one was my fake dad's funeral. So my grandpa on fake dad's side, he had passed away, and everybody went to the funeral except for me. I was left behind at home. It was so upsetting to me that I took up my dress, this beautiful dress that I owned. I was probably about 6 years old at the time, and I cut it all up to show my anger in a destructive way that, I thought would hurt my parents for leaving me behind. They, of course, explained it. Oh, it was because I was so young and kids shouldn't be at funerals, which the older I got, I was like, oh, well, I guess that's understandable. Another incident that's very pronounced was I saved my PIN money. I was probably 8 at the time. And it was during the times when catalogs was a thing still, and everything got ordered off catalogs. And I bought Fake Dad this Christmas tape that I thought would be a really exciting opportunity for us to listen together. I was really excited about it. It was a big deal to me. I remember feeling so heartbroken when it was kind of rejected. It was, he doesn't need this, so why would we waste our money buying this? It like really hurt my feelings because I thought it was a great gift, and it was just like this rejection from these adults that, that are supposed to love you. And there's other things. My mom, growing up, there was a story about that she would bring up all the time when I was being difficult, how she was going to have an abortion and she was laying in the chair and something told her not to, and here I am, and how I should just be very thankful that she changed her mind at the very last minute, and I shouldn't even be here. The story has been told even before I found any of this out, kind of like accompanied me my whole life. Similar, another story is she always claimed she had found me in the bushes, and that's why I was so different.
How did you feel hearing those kinds of things? I mean, hearing that your mom almost had an abortion and then didn't, and then here you are. I mean, how did that affect you?
I can't even tell you, because that is one of those stories that you've always been told. So you just, I don't remember how it first made me feel, because I was probably really young when she first normalized telling that story. And now looking back, it makes sense, but it's just even if I ever thought about an abortion, I would never tell my kids about that. I would never.
Right. It's not appropriate to share.
Yeah. Rub that in their face and make it part of their growing up, essentially, which is now it's hurtful. Now that I have all the information, it's just very hurtful. I feel like it wasn't a very close relationship with anybody. Me and my brother were close enough, but far enough apart. We were just always kind of bickering with each other. So there wasn't a lot of love lost. I feel like the closest relationship I had was with my grandmother, my mom's mom. She actually had a really rough family history. She has a lot of PTSD that I think knowing now what I do about PTSD and how it's a generational trauma, I understand how that influenced my mother's behavior in certain ways. So my grandma, she actually grew up in Prussia. And when World War II happened, she was a young teenager, and they were originally from Germany. And the Russians started entering World War II, and they started bombing the towns and kind of migrating west in the hopes of defeating Hitler. And so my grandma and her family were caught in the middle of all this, of these two mega forces battling it out right where they were living. And I remember her telling me how they had to pick up all their belongings and actually walk all the way to Germany from Prussia. Many family members died. It was really tough growing up for her, and it really scarred her in a lot of ways. Growing up, she would always hide when we had fireworks in the city because it reminded her of the bombs falling. And it was really hard to watch her and hear her tell these stories. So I can accept the fact that her trauma probably influenced how my mom grew up. My mother always said she had a very difficult relationship with my grandma. When I was 13 years old, my parents decided to take a job in America. My dad's job offered him a position here in Ohio. This is after the wall had come down and the economy was in turmoil, and then they thought it as a good opportunity to do something more with their lives. Especially both of them grew up behind the wall, and it was very restricted living behind the wall. So they saw this as a great opportunity. While they moved me and them to America, they left my brother, who was only 16 at the time, behind in Germany by himself. He actually moved in with my fake dad's grandmother. Back then, it was all explained away in an orderly fashion why this is happening. But looking back now, I would never leave my 16-year-old in a different continent.
What did you think about moving to the United States during that time? Were you excited?
I was excited. You know, you see some of the movies at that time. It was a little after the wall had come down, so the Western TV started being on, and you saw all these series and Western life, and you're like, oh, that's really cool, especially America. It just seemed like a really neat opportunity. Before we moved, I walked in on a conversation that was happening in the kitchen. I was 13 years old. And I think it was grandma and the parents and my brother, and they were talking about a sister. And I was like, what do you mean a sister? And they were like, oh, Luisa walked in on us. Now we have to tell her. Apparently, there existed a half-sister that was the same age as my brother. And the story goes that my dad got two women pregnant at the same time. He was seeing both of them, and his parents made him choose one of the women. He ended up choosing my mom, but they were both pregnant. They both had their children. She had a daughter. My mom had a son. Shortly after my brother was born, they actually ended up getting married. Now, my mom claims she was forced into that marriage by fake dad's mom. If it was really up to her, she would have never ended up marrying him. So the daughter at that time would have been also 16, like my brother. He was never in her life. He did pay child support, and that's actually the conversation I walked in on. How will these child support payments keep flowing once they are moved to America? And I'm like, well, who cares about that? I want to meet the sister. I have a sister out there. I've always wanted a sister. I only grew up with a brother, and we always had a very contentious relationship. Maybe she looks like me. Maybe we can be friends. I was over the moon. I was so excited. I was the driving force that finally got us to meet her. I begged my parents that I really wanted to meet the sister that I had, and it ended up being me, my brother, and my mom that ended up meeting her at a restaurant. And I want to say, fake dad, this is after we had already moved to the US, and because it takes a little time to, establish the relationship and get to a point of where you want to meet somebody. We all met with her at a restaurant, and it was lovely. She was a really sweet person. We don't look anything alike. It was kind of a bummer. For years, I was looking for similarities, and that was really that. So we were living in America. We had been here for a year now. That fake dad assaulted me. It wasn't a rape, but it was a sexual assault. And I was so young at the time. That's how I processed it, is like, oh, he didn't rape you. It's okay. You can just forget about it. You don't need to think about it. It will be okay. And I completely just blacked that out of my memory. And
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I would go about my business. You're in high school, I'm trying to learn a new language. I didn't speak English when I moved here. So I'm trying to learn English. That happened. I'm trying to make friends. Being a teenager and finding yourself in a new friend situation is so difficult. And it was a very volatile time. I wouldn't even know, even if I wanted to tell somebody besides my mother, who was out of town when that happened. And when she came back, a few days had passed, and I'm just like, okay, it's gone. We're just moving on. It's just us three here. Like, these are the two people that I rely on in my life. I have literally nobody else. It's not like I know any teachers that I've known for a few years or any friends. I wouldn't even know how to communicate something like that to anybody. It's incredible what your mind does. And I just went about my business. However, it really took a toll on our relationships further, and the next few years were really volatile. Lots of fights. He was always still traveling, so it was all me and my mom just fighting, and we didn't see eye to eye. There was times when we got into physical alterations. Just hard. There was a lot of talk of you're a difficult child, you always want everything, you are just complicated. You make our life complicated. In a sense, I was. When we were still living in Germany, I was running around with teenagers that also didn't like their home life, and we met on the streets and were just out and about at all hours. And I felt more of a connection to those people than my own parents. I've run away from home once just for one night, but it was like, I just couldn't take it anymore. It was a moment where me and my mom had gotten in a lot of fights.
Yeah, but I just want to say, because I think sometimes children, which you were a child, hear that. And the reality is you were a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yes. My husband put it really nicely. He said, because my oldest is actually born of a different relationship. So my husband and him are not related, but he met him when he was 3 years old, and he is now almost 20. So they've been in each other's lives for a long time. He really opened my eyes. He said, it's the same as me blaming your son for us not getting along at certain times. And I'm like, you're right. No kid should have that put on their shoulders, that they're the reason this relationship is so difficult. So I'm living in America. I'm kind of trying to figure out how to make this relationship with my parents work. It's just us three. None of the other family ever really kept in touch. The only one that sent me letters was my grandma on my mother's side that used to live with us. Other than that, and to this day, I have zero relationships with any of them except my brother, his daughter, and then my ex-half-sister. I was probably 17. I went back to Germany for a visit because my grandma was dying on fake dad's side. I went to visit her, and she just had no idea who I was. I was like, oh, I'm your granddaughter. She was struggling with dementia. She said these words, and they haunt me to this day. She says, but I don't have a granddaughter. I have asked my brother, did she ever not remember you? And he's like, oh no, she knew. She, even to the end, there was dementia moments, but the people around her, she would still kind of register. And later I put it together that that's fake dad's mom. And of course, she didn't have a granddaughter. More along the lines of my mom and me fighting is during one of these fights, or it might have been a series of fights, she took all my baby picture albums and ripped them all up. I have zero pictures of anybody with me as a baby. They're all ripped in half, and all that was left behind was just my picture. Nobody else in the picture, even herself. She ripped it all in half and took all the people out of all the photo albums that she's left behind, which is just... I can't even, I always put myself in her shoes. And when I think of my own children and doing that to my children, I just want to cry.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Always in our fights, she would leave little nuggets of, your real dad never wanted you, going along with the abortion claims from early in my childhood. And it got said a few times. It kind of stuck in my head. So for probably 15, 20 years, all these thoughts always circling in my head. I'm going about my life. I'm building my life. I'm going through college. I meet my husband. I get my CPA. I have a very good career. I'm building my life here. We get married. We have 2 more children. We now have 3 children. And I take a job in a nonprofit. It deals with children, and there are also troubled children there. So as an employee of this nonprofit, we received what is called trauma-informed care, which is a seminar that you take, and we went through it for a few days. And during that seminar, they go through certain exercises about your life and what are some traumatic and triggering events. And we go through this exercise, and my mind is just guess what happened to you? This is what happened to you. Do you remember this? It was almost like I experienced it for a second time. as an adult. I am glad it happened because who knows how long I still would have cut that part in my brain off and filed it away. That's about over 10 years ago now. From that moment on, it was just, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was constant. My thoughts constantly like, he did this and this and this and this. And what do you do now? What do you do? I have my own life. I still try to maintain a relationship with my mom and fake dad because they're the only family I've left, especially on this continent. I don't really have any other connections to my origin family besides my brother. So I'm still making it work. It's very anxiety driven. They've never really gotten along with my husband in the beginning either. So their relationship has always been very volatile. He never knew about any of it until a few years ago when I finally opened up to him. He is actually very encouraging of just cut them off. They're not adding any positive value in your life. So it was a very stressful time. I started seeing therapists and life coaches and kind of trying to get to a better place. In 2020, so 5 years ago, my mom and fake dad moved back to Europe. They ended up leaving the US, and might I say the only grandchildren they actually have, and moved not to Germany, but to Hungary to live out their retirement years over there. It's been 5 years now. I've only seen them once. That was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago was the last time I seen them, and I've just been going throughout my life as normal. When last August, my brother suddenly texted everyone, and there is a group chat going on between all the different people all over the world, and he texted how great his DNA test turned out, and here's all the regions it popped up, and look at this, and I'm German, just as we expected. They're picking up the Eastern European from grandma's side, and the rest is all German. There's some Great Britain in there. Where did that come from? It must be from someone else's family. He was so excited, and he just kind of like opened Pandora's box. Because the moment he sent that text, I jumped on it. I was like, oh, what DNA test did you use? And he was like, oh, I used MyHeritage. That's the most popular in Germany. So I went with that. I was like, oh, I'm buying me one. I want to see. And in my head, I'm like, I'm finally going to get my answer. I'm going to get my answer to these questions that have just been sitting in my head for decades. And so I run out the same day. I grab the test or I order it, and it took forever in the mail. And every day I'm looking on the app, just waiting.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
I wake up usually about 4:20 in the morning to go to the gym. And so I'm waking up at 4:20, and what's sitting in my inbox is the test result that just changed everything. Turns out he's my half-brother. And immediately I'm like, I knew it. He's not my father. I just knew it. And my husband, I wake him up right away and I'm like, hey, the test is here. And I'm right. I've been right my whole life. And he's like, well, hold on. It could also mean that maybe your brother isn't his and you're really his. And I'm like, oh my God, no. That would make no sense.
I can tell it was such an emotional moment for you. Was it relief? Was it upset? Like, what were you feeling when you saw
just
that?
Disbelief. It probably took a few hours. The first moment was, I knew it. And then I was like, oh my God, this just changes everything. And then I'm like texting them because I'm actually 6 hours behind. So they are already awake. It's 10 in the morning for them. And so I'm texting my brother. I'm like, have you seen the results? And he's like, no, I'm at work. I'll look later. And I'm like, I need you to look right now. And he's like, okay, give me a minute. And I'm just standing there in my kitchen, like, oh my God. And he's not responding. So I'm like, I got to go to work. I got to go exercise. It just took my mind off the whole thing. It was so relieving. I'm so glad I went because the rest of the day was just pure hell. So I go to exercise and I finally come back and he's finally answered me. And he's like, what in the world is this? What does this mean? And I'm like, it says we're only half related. And his first impulse is he calls them right away. They don't answer. We tried twice to get them on the phone right away. They don't know at this point that I have received my results. However, they did know that I was taking the test because when I said, oh, I'll do it too, I said that in the group chat. So they knew that this was about to come out and they didn't say a single word. And again, they didn't answer our phone calls. Finally, my brother ended up texting them and saying like, what does this mean? She's my half sister. Like, you gotta call us. And there was no response, but you could see that they saw the message. And I'm like, what is going on? Took them another 2 hours before I finally received a text message that they're now ready for me to call them. And they are saying this in the group chat. They're like essentially telling my brother, it's none of your business. We're now talking to Luisa. Please call us. And I'm like, what just happened? They literally took their time and made me wait to get their story straight. That's literally all that's going through my head. We call them up and they're just like, this is what happened. We all know that fake dad had an affair on my mom and she got back at him. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And she's like, oh, I had this affair with an Italian guy. And I was like, okay, well, I'm 3 years younger than my brother and you guys are already married. And she's like, oh yeah, your dad's out of town. And he was a patron at the hotel that she worked at. And she just slept with him. And she claims he got her pregnant on the first try. And that's the end of it. Apparently, come to find out, the whole family knew about this. Everybody knew I was not his daughter, which now makes so much sense because nobody ever really bothered to keep in touch with me. When I was about, I think, 18 years old, my aunt and uncle, which is a fake dad's brother, asked me not to call them aunt and uncle anymore. And they just framed it, oh, we're too old for that. Just call us XY. I always thought that was kind of bizarre, but, different people have different opinions about things. And if they want to be called that, then I can appreciate that. Sure, I can do that. Looking back now is, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense now because it probably bothered them that I was calling them aunt and uncle when they really weren't. Fun fact, I have never heard from them again since I found out.
That's what I was going to say. Like, everyone certainly is entitled to their own reaction, but just the idea that these were your aunt and uncle. Now they knew, correct? They
knew,
knew about this. So they were holding it. And then once you found out, disowned you.
Pretty much. I mean, it's not like they came out and said, oh, we won't talk to you anymore. But before there was at least a Christmas message or a, Christmas past. Now my birthday is coming up. We'll see what kind of reactions we get there. But my brother is actually very close with aunt and uncle, said aunt and uncle. And he went to them the same day that I found out. And that's how we found out that everybody knew. And they claimed that this Italian man was her boyfriend. They literally called him her boyfriend. And I don't think you do that when you have a one-night stand. There has to be more connection for the other family members to call him her little boyfriend. When I pulled up my heritage results and I saw my brother was my half-brother, it also popped up all these Italian people as my closest connections. We know nobody in Italy. So I didn't actually think anything of it until she said, oh, it was an Italian man. He was at my hotel. He got me pregnant. I slept with him because I was angry at your father, is how she worded it. And her next sentence was, oh my God, you look just like him. I was like, oh, that's nice to know. So who is he? Oh, he is such and such. He lives there and there, and you can find him online. She gave me all this information. And I am 42 years old, and this woman has kept track of him. She knew how many children he had. She knew where he was living, where I could find him. I found him within 5 minutes. With the information she was telling me over the phone, I just found him on Facebook, and I sent her a picture of him. I was like, this is him? And she's like, oh yeah, that's him. That looks just like him. Oh, it was just so surreal. Like I just couldn't believe her.
It was all right there.
She claims that he knew all along that she had a baby. Her story goes that when she found out that she was pregnant with me, she told him, and he wanted nothing to do with it, gave her $600 to have an abortion. And I was like, well, that's a very specific number. And $600 is a lot of money nowadays. Back then, that would have been, East Germany, 600, I'm assuming German marks back then, but that would have been almost like a little fortune. And for her to be like, oh yeah, he wanted me to have an abortion, goes right back into, oh, she went to the abortion clinic and was on the chair and was gonna have the abortion and then didn't. And here we are. So that's the story she's sticking to. Then she does claim that afterwards, once he basically said, I want nothing to do with it, here's the money, she ended up going to fake that and saying, okay, this is what's happening. And he said, I'll take care of you. I will raise this child as my own, and we'll just make this work. They claim that fake that was the one that decided to never tell me. On the first phone call we had, they literally said in a very joking, funny way, like it's all a big joke to them, that we would have taken this to the grave. How could we have ever known that there was going to be DNA tests and you're ever going to find out?
Oh.
I couldn't even ask them any detailed question because I was like, I don't even know if I'm getting the truth from them. There was another phone call that I had with her when I asked her some follow-up questions where she literally said, oh, I blame your father, fake that. I blame him for forcing me to lie to you all these years. I blame new dad that he got me pregnant in the first place. And I blame you for being such a difficult child. All within a 2-minute little conversation that this is all spewing out of her after all these years.
Where are things at with her now?
I am not speaking with them. I ended up making contact with my new dad. It's very difficult. They don't speak German. I don't speak Italian. They don't speak English. So everything we have communicated so far is over text message. And I will type out my text message on WhatsApp in English, hit the translate button, and hope my message arrives in the same sentiment that I mean for it to sound on their end.
Is he excited about you? Like, what has his reaction been?
No, his story, he claims that he did have an affair with her. There was a single one-night stand versus all the other claims of, oh, he was her little boyfriend. He says at the time he had just met his wife that he's still now married to. He had just met her a month before, but they were still in the very early beginnings of their relationship. He claims that he did not just leave the country, but was kicked out. That he had this relationship with her, went back to Italy for vacation or time off. And when he tried to come back, his passport and visa were revoked. Now, this is still Eastern and Western Germany. There was a wall, so it's really hard to travel in and out of Eastern Europe. His visa was revoked, and he was never allowed to enter the country again. He does say that he did receive a phone call from her after I was born, but she never said anything about a baby. Neither one of their stories line up. I'm gonna say it was probably in between those two stories. I do think he knew about me. He texts me like once a month. And I know that's a lot to some people. I always want more. But he always keeps saying how important his wife is to him, and his wife is his number one. And this is not going to interfere with his wife's relationship. He doesn't come right out and say it, but to me, that means don't expect much out of our relationship. And I have asked about meeting him, and there hasn't really been any movement with that. He doesn't seem to really want to go there. He hasn't straight out said no, but anytime I brought up, I'll come and visit to Italy, it's not like jumping on it. Whereas I have now found out I have two brothers, actually, two more brothers, and the one brother is actually older than me. So new dad had a child with someone in Spain, then had a child with someone in Germany, and then married his wife and had another child in Italy. Well, the wife does know about the other child from Spain, the brother that's older than me, but there's no relationship there because he is in jail. But the younger brother does talk to me. And he has expressed an interest in meeting me, although only his wife speaks a little English. So he's always keeps saying, oh, she'll have to translate and brush up on her English. But I think in this day and age, it would be really easy to find a translator to come along on a visit, or, find someone in town that can kind of facilitate a meeting. I don't see a big problem with that, but every country has different cultures. I know nothing about Italian. I know nothing about my heritage. I'm really sad about not ever having connected with that part of myself.
What are you really hoping for in your relationship based off of what you know today?
I've settled down in my expectations a little. I was very excited because I never felt like I connected with my origin family very well. So knowing that there is a different piece of me out there genetically that might be like me would be really exciting. And I was like, oh, I'm going to meet all these people. I'll go to Italy, and I've always wanted to go to Italy. There are certain things, for example, Germans are known to be very white. They don't tan very well, right? My whole life, as you can see right now, I'm very tan. My whole life, everybody always was like, are you sure you're German? Because you look very tan. Like, I thought Germans don't tan. I'm like, yeah, Germans tan. Look at me. I'm also German, and I tan. And now I'm like, no, I'm Italian. So I would love to go. I would love to go there. I would love to hug them. I would love to know that as difficult as my mom was, I am not her. I'm more like them. I'm actually a very happy and sunny individual. Overall, I'm really excited that my truth finally came out, and it was a good truth, because now I'm like, fake that has nothing to do with me. He is a sad man that made a horrible choice in his life. And it's not just that, it's not like we had a close relationship to begin with. Same with my mother. There was nothing close. There's now nothing that I miss anymore. I have stopped talking to them in any meaningful way. There are the occasional, she'll try to send me an article about something political, and it's like, oh, what do you think about that? And I'll ignore her. And however, I still have to deal with their finances over here. So there's always going to be some connection that has to stay in place, which is unfortunate. But my husband says just cut them off and be done with it. I just can't take that last step. So I try to find a nice balance. I don't call them anymore. They have stopped calling me. I'm just done with them. They had their chance. They had their chance to build a meaningful relationship with me. What I thought was a half sister, I now have no sister. However, I have shared that story with her, and she was very, very sweet, and we're still in contact. So she's now a good friend and probably still a sister. There's beautiful people in the world. I have a really great relationship with my children. I would never put them through what my mom put me through.
What advice do you have for a parent who may be keeping a DNA surprise from their child?
Don't do it. Parents, there's two groups. One is the more modern parent who knows that the tests are out there. So I think that is just going to be a non-issue. But for anybody listening that might have still not told their child, just have a conversation with them. The most hurtful thing really was when it's not that they didn't tell me my whole life. They claimed there was never a good spot to tell me. But the moment I said, I am taking this test, it will come out. It's just a matter of weeks. And they said nothing. That is so painful to know that parents could do that. So don't do it. Just don't do it.
And what advice do you have for someone who just uncovered a DNA surprise?
Take your time. Sit with it for a minute. I'm a person that likes to just tackle everything right away. And, if I have new information, I just want to share it and act on it. But sit with it for a minute. It's such a shock. There's so many emotions that go through you one day after the event, a week after the event, a month after the event. And even now I'm 8 months past actually finding out, and there's still so many emotions that will come up randomly that are normal. And this community has really just been such a backbone in helping me figure out, are these feelings normal? Are these feelings valid? Trust your intuition, take some time, sit with it, and really think about what this means to you and how you want to proceed.
Luisa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story.
For having me.
I am so impressed with the compassion that you have for everyone involved, while still looking at it through a very realistic lens and the way that you've cared for yourself throughout this. I hope that you make it over to Italy, whether that's to connect with your father, your new dad, or just to explore and have some of the yummy food. Yeah, please keep me posted on how things are going. I wish you the best.
It's always a developing story, so we'll see what happens in the next year. And I'm just happy I now know and I can find it all out and explore. So I love exploring.
Thanks again to Luisa for sharing her story. If you have a DNA surprise that you'd like to share, please submit your story at dnasurprises.com. And for early, ad-free access to episodes, join me over on Patreon at patreon.com/DNA surprises. Until next time, this episode of DNA Surprises was hosted, produced, and edited by me, Alexis Auerselt. It was mixed and mastered by Josh Auerselt of Siren Recording Studios.